Here.
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 Here. Here. Here.
Here. Mr. Jerby, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Jerby. Any modifications to the agenda, board members?
Mr. Hanlon, I would like to, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, move consent agenda item number 18 to action item.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're going to actually recommend that that one not be acted on at this meeting. Dr. O'Keefe has actually asked us. He's got an additional detail he wants to work out, so I'm going to actually recommend we table that completely until the next meeting. When we do, we can certainly bring it back, though, on an action item.
Okay,
What
thank
was
you.
the other one?
That was all.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, hearing none, we're going to follow up with recognitions and achievements. Dr. Schuler, can you introduce the Art Award recipients, please?
I'd be happy to. So I get the distinct pleasure every year of recognizing 5 students in the district as Superintendent Art Award recipients. So a little bit of background on this. 3 of the students come through the PTA Reflections contest, so we're incredibly appreciative, thankful of our PTA Council for sponsoring the Reflections opportunity every year. Students across all of our elementary and middle schools participate in that. In January, we do a big event at Hubble Middle School where we recognize students that have advanced to the district level, but then 3 students in particular are recognized as Superintendent Art Award recipients, and so it means that their pieces of art were selected through feedback from everybody that works inside of this building. So all of our staff at the SSC vote on those opportunities, advance them forward. What's special and unique about the Superintendent Art Award recipients is their artwork is framed. You'll see it out in our entry area here, and it stays up on our walls. So for the first year, it actually gets framed and stays in my office. I get the pleasure of looking at the pieces of artwork for a year, and then it rotates through the building until it does eventually go back to the student. In addition to that, both of our high schools do art shows every year, and so in the fall I have an opportunity to select a piece of art from Wheaton Warrenville South, in the spring from Wheaton North, and similarly those pieces of artwork are framed, stay over here. The 2 pieces of high school art I actually purchase from the students, so we get them framed by the pieces of art. And so what I always tell the student, I told Avery, I know Avery's here, that she's a professional artist now. She sold her first piece of art, as did Alexis this year. So it is my pleasure to introduce our 5 Superintendent Art Award recipients. First, I'm going to call up Liam Cho. Liam just finished 3rd grade at Lowell Elementary School. Liam, would you mind standing up? 2nd grade. Sorry, he's going into 3rd grade. My bad. Liam, would you mind standing up for us? We're going to give you a round of applause. Liam, you're going to stay standing, and I'm going to ask Ava Sequoia to join you. Ava just finished 5th grade at Westbrook Elementary School. And I'd like to recognize and ask Gracie Collins to join them. Gracie just finished 7th grade at Hubble Middle School. Gracie. And then finally, I'm going to invite up to join them Avery Krejci from Wheaton Warrenville South. Avery, come on up, join them. So students, our tradition when we recognize students is that we're going to ask you to come around and shake hands with each of the board members so they can congratulate you individually, if you wouldn't mind.
there's the exit.
Any other information, Dr. Schuler?
I don't. Just final congratulations to all of our students. Mrs. Lackner, I think they slid out the side door. If you want to meet them for a group picture out there, that would be fantastic. And parents, thank you for joining us. Congratulations to you as well.
Yeah, all right, we're entering our this public comment section of the meeting, so I'd like to read a preamble, and then we'll get at our public comments. So thank you for taking time to share your feedback and thoughtful focus on our students, school district, and community. It's the board's practice not to directly discuss communication from the community until the context is understood and information is explored. It is not our intention to signal a lack of interest, and we appreciate you understanding. Depending on the number of people signed up to speak during public comment, Board Policy 2.230 enables the time per speaker to be reduced from 3 minutes to 2 minutes, allowing more people to share their perspectives. Tonight, we will not have to reduce the time for each speaker, so we'll be at 3 minutes. When we meet, it's important that we all treat each other with kindness and respect. We set an example for our schools and desire to honor that by being courteous in our public comments. Let's work together to lead with positive intent so that our democratic process reflects the best of our community. To help us follow up, if needed, please include your name and if you're a resident of the district. To ensure everyone has a chance to speak, Ms. Kolovitz will raise her hand when 15 minutes remain.
15 seconds.
Sorry, 15 seconds. That'd be a long night, wouldn't it? But you guys don't want to do that either, right? 15 seconds remain as a reminder to wrap up your thoughts. At the end of our agreed time, I'll respectfully ask you to let the next speaker begin. Thank you for investing time to attend the board meeting tonight and share your thoughts and encouragements with our district. So first on the list, we have Jennifer Castino.
My name is Jennifer Castino. I've lived in the district for 12 years. My only child is a middle schooler in the district. I'm here tonight representing the LGBTQ+ work group of DEI 200, a community organization with a mission to support the district's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. During this Pride Month, we would first like to thank you for all you already do to support our LGBTQ+ students, families, and educators. Thank you for supporting inclusive curriculum, for retaining diverse resources in our LLCs, for comprehensive policies that protect and encourage our LGBTQ+ students, gender support plans that allow for flexibility to address students' unique situations, gay-straight alliance clubs, visible and affirming displays. These are essential to ensuring the growth and well-being of all our students. It has been 158 years since Illinois' own Albert Cashier, who was assigned female at birth, fought in the Civil War. 71 years since Americans first read about Christine Jorgensen's gender affirmation surgeries. 54 years since trans women Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera helped start the Stonewall Rebellion. 45 years since Gilbert Baker designed the rainbow flag. 36 years since Larry Kramer and others founded ACT UP to end the AIDS crisis. And 8 years since Jim Obergefell won at the Supreme Court. Yet right now, our LGBTQ+ siblings and their allies are being scapegoated and dehumanized in this country at a terrifying rate. At national, state, and local levels, some of our most vulnerable children are under attack. So far this year, legislators in nearly every state have introduced over 500 anti-LGBTQ+ bills, more than any in the past 8 years combined. The American Library Association documented challenges to more than 2,500 books in 2022, the highest number on record. Over half of the most challenged books last year were opposed for having LGBTQ+ content. A recent CDC report indicated that creating a safe and supportive school environment for LGBTQ+ students by implementing gay-straight alliances, training teachers on LGBTQ+ inclusivity, and using an LGBTQ+ curriculum has been associated with improved mental health outcomes for LGBTQ+ students. Illinois legislators have passed laws to affirm or protect members of the LGBTQ+ community, including the Illinois Human Rights Act that protects students of all gender-related identities from discrimination and harassment. We are also one of 5 states requiring public schools to include instruction that accurately portray the contributions of LGBTQ+ individuals. The state also passed laws ensuring districts who teach sex ed do so with age-appropriate curriculum that's inclusive of LGBTQ+ youth. We would like to continue collaborating with the community and the district to ensure our schools offer representative curriculum and materials, comprehensive sex ed, and inclusive clubs and policies. We hope you will be a vocal and reliable advocate for our LGBTQ+ students, families, and educators. Happy Pride.
Thank you, Ms. Castino. Our next speaker is Thomas Hallen.
Good evening. I'm a resident of DuPage County, unincorporated, within District 200. My property nearly borders Wheaton Warrenville South High School, which is in the city of Wheaton. I am represented in the county and the district, but not in the city of Wheaton. I have previously notified the board and superintendent of the situation at hand. During the spring of 2023 and up until May 23rd, there has been clearing of vegetation in a protected area. This clearing has severely damaged the local environment and eliminated the noise abatement from the school's air handling unit, which is now of great concern to myself and surrounding community as it affects our health and property. To date, the only official statement provided to me by the county and the district is that two trees were leaning and subsequently cut down for safety reasons, and that there is no noise issue. That is not the nature of my complaint. As seen in the photographs I have provided, there has been a clearing of trees along the school's shoreline and the elimination of natural wetland. I would like to thank the district that the air handling unit has mainly been turned off since my complaints. It still runs at times during the day and is off on weekends. However, I am concerned that when school is back in session, the noise pollution will rise again, and so I request action, as the reality of this issue carries with it significant impact. I understand reasonable use during the process of mitigation, but need to be certain that mitigation is in progress. I have provided the board and superintendent with my own simple mitigation strategy. I would like this taken into consideration during development of the actual mitigation plan to restore the environment and peace of the surrounding area. As elected and appointed officials, I am requesting your representation to resolve a condition the district induced. Restoration of the damaged area should also be used as a teaching tool to educate young minds about the importance of conservation, as the wetland in question is home to many unique as well as endangered species and is an excellent platform for curriculum development with hands-on tools. As we preach about being green and conservation of the environment, I can think of no better avenue to display these values than into our local wetland bordering an educational facility. Under federal and Illinois law, the right to natural wetland and a peaceful environment is a human right and should not be taken lightly. For these reasons, I call upon the board to investigate and resolve this issue, restore the native wetland, and resolve the pollution to the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hallen. Our next speaker is Patty Cross.
Good evening. My name is Patty Cross. I live in Wheaton, and I have 2 students currently at South. My concern is the increased class sizes and loss of sections for various schools during or coming up for the next school year. And from what we understand is that that's due to the 6% increase. And while I don't begrudge teachers, our teachers are amazing, they're excellent. They earn every dollar that is given to them, and there are some teachers that I would give much more to than 6% in our district. But I'm concerned that there wasn't really there was a serious lack of discussion as to how this was going to be appropriated and how that's going to affect the learning of our students. We have students that are still behind because of COVID. Our reading and math rates are not where we should be as a district, and I really hope that in the upcoming months that we have serious discussions about how we're going to overcome that deficit, especially now with the loss of sections and the loss of support staff within our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cross. Our next speaker is Rosa Welsh.
Hello, my name is Rosa Welch. I live in unincorporated Wheaton. I have 2 going to be 3 children attending Pleasant Hill next year. I just wanted to read a part of the letter I sent. I'm here to express my deep concern about the decision to combine sections at 9 of our 13 elementary schools, 5 of those which are Title I schools, including Pleasant Hill. This will result in an increase of class sizes to 26 to 29 students on average for many of our classes. I believe it is crucial to address this issue promptly to ensure the educational development of our children and integrity of our school and district. As we know, research consistently demonstrates that smaller class sizes lead to improved student outcomes, greater engagement, and more personalized attention. By increasing class sizes, we risk compromising the quality of our education, hindering the academic progress of our young learners, and overwhelming our dedicated teachers. Smaller class sizes are especially important at Pleasant Hill since it's a Title I school. As you know, Pleasant Hill is one of the highest populations of both English language learners and low-income students of all of our elementary schools. The increased class sizes will result in limited individualized attention, which can impede student participation and decrease the opportunity for focused instruction. It will make it even more challenging for our teachers to be able to address the diverse learning needs of each student effectively. If the main reason for this decision is based on budgetary constraints, I'm interested to hear if the district has plans set in order to support our students and our teachers with this increase. With these larger class sizes, the teacher-student ratio will be 26 or 28 to 1 for many of our grades. Many of our students who, in Pleasant Hill, this is happening, students who are going into third grade, they were the ones who missed out on kindergarten and first grade due to COVID. So they've already missed out on so much of that crucial foundational learning. Well, I understand the district is using Title I funds to provide specialists and coaches for reading and math pullout services. And while I think these are extremely valuable, it still leaves 7 hours in the day for teachers to be in the classroom at that 26 to 1 student ratio, which I just think is unacceptable. As our district strives to provide equitable learning experiences, we should be pursuing ways to provide more supportive environments to meet the needs of our students and eliminate barriers to their success, not create them. These kids deserve better, and we need to do better for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Welsh. Our last speaker tonight is Elizabeth Akins.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Akins. I'm a community member and parent at Pleasant Hill. Thank you for your commitment to our children during the 2022-2023 school year. Now is the time for reflection and planning for the upcoming year and how our district can continue to inspire excellence. My son just wrapped up his kindergarten year at Pleasant Hill. Like others before me, I'm concerned about the district's plan to eliminate class sections across District 200. A reduction in sections will inflate class sizes in schools where students are still suffering from falling behind during COVID. We do not have accurate figures on the impact of shutting down schools, limiting school hours for COVID restrictions, but after volunteering in his classroom, I can say that the last thing his wonderful teacher needed was more children in the classroom. Pleasant Hill has plenty of space. Space is not the issue, at least for Pleasant Hill. Sections are being reduced to save District 200 money. Our children's already suffering education should not be further sacrificed to save money. Pleasant Hill is a Title I school, which means more resources should be allocated to help address specific needs of our students. However, I know many of the teachers' aide positions were not filled until midway through the school year due to staffing issues. This must be addressed. The impact of overcrowded classrooms will not only affect our students, but the quality of teachers as well. Teacher burnout is already at an all-time high. We cannot continue to sacrifice and skimp and add pressure to teachers without consequence. I hope the administration and board members will understand what a profound impact this will have on the quality of education for our students. I also want to address hiring policies in the district and strongly encourage District 200 to change their handbook to state that no adult with any conviction against—
Excuse me, ma'am. You're
Sorry.
not going to be able to comment on that. Any personnel matters you can deal directly with the board. We'll be glad to take your name and information and talk to you one-on-one specifically about that, but not at a public board meeting. Thank you for understanding.
Right.
It's okay. Just personal matters we'd rather deal with one-on-one. Thank you for understanding. Appreciate your time, and thanks for coming out. All right, next on the list is the superintendent report. Dr. Schuler, any information?
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. I do have a few things that I want to share with the board under my report this evening. Number one, I want to mention to the board in your green folders, you have the annual summary of gifts to the district. At each of your board meetings, you accept gifts, a lot of them from our partner organizations and our PTA councils, booster groups, and I think it's nice to kind of give you that view in the aggregate so that you can see the impact this year. We accepted about $327,000 worth of gifts from those organizations, which we greatly appreciate. So just wanted to share that with you. Number two, wanted to mention to the board, we shared this with our staff at the end of the year, and I'd previously passed it along to the board. So the Western DuPage Chamber of Commerce through Dave Sabathny, Dave had shared with me a few weeks back a resource that was published. So two major universities, Harvard and Stanford, collaborated on really what I think is the first major post-pandemic study of learning loss in school districts. They studied this across all states that had state test data. I think there were about 38 states that were a part of the study, and actually drilled that study down to individual districts. Every state has a slightly different standardized test, so they use NAEP results to create a comparable metric across all districts. And the long and the short of it is that every individual district got a score. If your score was a 0, that meant that your learning results in 2022 were equivalent to your learning results in 2019, the last significant testing year in front of the pandemic. Across the country, the average learning loss was a negative 0.5, or about a half a year. In math, about a quarter year in reading. As I mentioned, they pulled those results down to individual districts. We were one of a small group of districts, actually in the state of Illinois, that actually had positive results in both. We actually showed learning gains, both in math and reading, 2022 compared to 2019. There were a couple of things that they looked at or kind of attributed to those results. They looked very specifically at time in school, especially in the year following the immediate shutdown. So what percentage of time a school district was fully remote versus having kids in buildings. And certainly, as you looked at District 200 relative to a lot of districts in Illinois, that picture looked substantially different. Well, we offered the virtual academy option, especially at the elementary school. We did have our kids in school. They also looked at how you used resources that came through the recovery dollars to specifically target the kinds of supports that helped us to move beyond. So how we use those resources to hire additional intervention staff, additional instructional support staff, and as we shared with the board, right, those resources are short-lived resources. So we were able to bring them into the system, but we're only able to do it for a defined window of time, and shared with the board that obviously as we transition out of those recovery resources, we received about $4 million in the aggregate from the federal government, but dollars are fading out, and so we do have to make adjustments, obviously, moving forward to prioritize which of those intervention resources we're able to continue versus some of the adjustments that we're making to balance our budget. So I think the board knows coming in July, as Dr. O'Keefe presents the budget, the board's policy is to present to you a balanced budget. We intend to do so, again, attempting to reflect what we believe were the impactful strategies that I think kind of led to those results. But I wanted to share those results with the board. Thank you for your support of the work that we did through the district kind of in that post-pandemic era. We shared it with our teachers because they put in place monumental lifts to support students, and so those results are not reflective of any one person in the district or any one strategy in the district, but I think the collective efforts of everybody to prioritize the experience of our students. So I wanted to share that, thank the board, and let you know that I think that was pretty strong validation of the work that you did. Last little piece that I'll mention to that is in that study they also put an economic impact of learning loss, and so not having negative numbers not only is impactful, obviously, for the learning outcomes of students, but they were able to tie that to an economic value of what it means for students and ultimately kind of future earnings as they work through the district. Third thing I just wanted to share with you is that we, as the board is aware, we've put in place a number of learning acceleration strategies tonight on your agenda. You're being asked to approve the Reading in ELA curriculum for our elementary schools that follows the implementation of a new math curriculum in this past year. Melissa and her team have had teachers in. It feels like almost every day this summer. There's been a group of teachers in here working on that bookworms implementation, readying our schools and our plans to support. A lot of those teachers are our coaches and our instructional supports that, again, are hard at work making sure that our teachers are ready to put in place, especially that foundational skills element in the early grades, which is consistent with science of reading and what we know is impactful for kids. So kudos and congratulations to our teachers. Brian, Kevin, and his team are hard at work. We've got about $10 million worth of summer construction that's happening, and if you know school construction, as certainly I know Mr. Polson does, you have about an 8-week window to get pretty substantial work done, and 8 weeks is probably pretty generous. So our folks are hard at work with that summer construction work. That includes major projects at Lowell. Lowell's getting a new HVAC system, new ceilings, lights, and a new playground. Washington is getting ceilings and lights, which will complete really a pretty major renovation there. Sandburg's got some new flooring coming in. Whittier has a new library learning center and some surrounding classroom adjustments. Johnson has a new library learning center with some hallway lights tied to it. We've got some pretty major paving and concrete work at our 2 high schools. Longfellow's got a major flooring project. Hawthorne has just a small piece of flooring to complete that work. And Bauer has a playground replacement that's underway. So the early part of the summer has been largely about demo and ready, and now we're already hard at work into the restoration. We believe we'll certainly be on time for substantial completion by that first week in August, which is the target. Wanted to mention, over to my left is Dr. Kyle. This is Dr. Kyle's last meeting with us. I want to just take a minute to thank Dr. Kyle. As you know, he's going to become the superintendent next year of a neighboring DuPage district, and so we appreciate certainly all of his work. He's had a particularly busy and active year this year, and has done a lot of work with ours. But tying it back to that Harvard study. That was a monumental task, completely restaffing a school district with about 3 weeks to go before the start of that year when we returned from the pandemic. But Charlie and his team led that work, did an incredible job, and so I'm thankful, appreciative of Charlie's work. And then finally, I just want to mention, it was mentioned in one of the public comments at the front end, generally as we're in school during holidays, during commemorative months, we recognize, educate students. June is Pride Month, and we recognize that at the board meeting because our schools are not in session. And so I want to mention that. I also want to mention that next Monday, all of our buildings will be closed. That's Juneteenth, which is also a holiday in the district and state of Illinois. So with that, again, thankful for the opportunity to share those updates.
Thank you, Dr. Schuler. Going to enter the consent agenda. So items including the consent agenda tonight: acceptance of gifts from Jefferson Early Childhood Center PTA, acceptance of gifts from Longfellow Elementary School PTA, acceptance of gifts from Washington Elementary School PTA, acceptance of gift to Washington Elementary School, acceptance of gifts from Edison Middle School PTA, approval of elementary English language arts instructional materials, approval of instructional materials for multilingual learners, approval of statewide Title I program for Bauer, Lowell, Sandburg, and Washington elementary schools, approval of the district consolidated plan, approval of the 2023-24 Citizens Advisory Committee roster, approval to add serious safety hazard bus route for Franklin Middle School, approval of middle and high school laptop lease agreement, Approval of liability insurance with CLIC. Approval of workers' compensation renewal with SELF. Approval of print shop paper bid. Approval of xerographic bond paper bid. Approval to increase paid lunch price. We're removing number 18, remember, we're going to push that to another meeting. Approval of the Granicus Engagement HQ platform. Approval of bills payable and payroll. Approval of minutes for May 10, 2023, open and closed, and approval to destroy recordings of closed sessions prior to January 2022 as allowable by law. Approval of personnel report to include employment, resignation, retirement, and leave of absence of administrative, certified, classified, and non-union staff. Board, are there any items that board members want removed from the consent agenda? Think we're good? Yep. Dr. Schuler, do you have any additional information for the board at this time?
No additional information.
So board, any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes,
I
please,
just,
Ms. Blattner.
I had meant to ask this, and my memory was jogged when you were reading through. I just want to confirm that the materials for the ELA program, or the new ELA curriculum, will they be available for, like the teacher editions, will they be available for the teachers this summer, or be prior to the start of school this fall?
Everything is online for the teachers' manuals for the teachers to access already. And they all have accounts to be able to log in and do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
One comment.
Sure, Brett.
Number 10, the CAC. Not really related to the roster. I'll support that. In terms of the agenda topics for the year, I'd love to see a kind of preliminary mapped out set of topics that we're going to discuss with the CAC during the course of the year. I know we often align that with the goal work plans, so it's a few months away maybe, but I'd love to see that come to the board for review and comment.
Yeah, that's fine. Brad, we in the past, I think, have always had a standing agenda item where board can provide input if there are certain topics you'd like addressed with them. I mean, I can certainly try to bring to you a projected set of topics. There's always some adjustment during the year because things come up that may be policies we didn't anticipate discussing early in the year. But
Absolutely,
that.
just
Yeah.
preliminary.
Sure, no problem.
Any other questions or comments? All right, board, I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So
Anyone?
moved.
Moved by Mr. Paulson,
Second.
second by Ms. Kulovitz. Ms. Hutchinson, would you please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you. The next action item, policy posting consent agenda. The following 11 policy numbers are listed for approval to post for public review and comment. And I'm only going to read the policy numbers, as you can look them up in our policy manual. Revised policy 2.110. Revised policy 4.60. Revised policy 5.125. Revised policy 5.150. Revised policy 5.260. Revised policy 5.30, revised policy 5.90, revised policy 6.135, revised policy 6.210, revised policy 6.230, and revised policy 8.20. Board, are there any items that members want removed from the policy posting consent agenda? Dr. Schuler, do you have any information for the board?
No, just a quick reminder of process. So all of these policies were updated per the last issue of press. That's the policy service that the board belongs to help ensure that your policies are compliant with school code and with any legislative updates. All of these policies were updated through that last edition of press. When we get an edition of press, our team reviews the policy changes to understand where they're coming from, what law was changed to drive them, and ensure that the policy is compliant with our practice. We then bring that to your policy committee that does an initial review and then makes a decision about advancing them on to the board. So these have been through your policy committee and are recommended for the board to take action to post them for public and review over the next month.
Board, any questions or comments? All right, Board, I need a motion and a second to approve the policy posting consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Rutledge,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Long. Ms. Hutchison, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, move to the main portion or agenda action items. We have 2 action items on the agenda for tonight. The first is approval of an extension to the collective bargaining agreement with the Classified Employees Association, CEA, for 2024-2025. Dr. Schuler, do you want to introduce the topic and any additional information?
Yeah, I'm going to introduce the topic, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. O'Keefe to add any additional kind of background or content. What I just wanted to share with the board, I think as you're well aware, we recently approved a new contract with WWEA. Their contract was up, so we were negotiating their contract. And a little bit of context, we started a little over a year ago as we came out of really kind of our second pandemic recovery year. We started a process of kind of regularly checking, evaluating employee culture and morale. And so we certainly sought feedback from our employees on not only how we can make changes certainly within our learning environments and the way that we're engaging with our staff to address their feelings about the work environment, which is critically important, but we also got feedback certainly from them on some of the struggles that they were experiencing in some of our compensation elements, especially where we were falling behind what the competitive market is. That drove the work we did with WWEA through this year, and almost at the completion of the WWEA contract, Dr. Kyle and his team began work with CEA. Their contract was not up, but we asked to reopen the contract to address some areas that certainly we felt needed to be addressed within their contract. And so what's in front of you tonight are some adjustments to their contract, but then that came with extending the contract by a year. And so, Dr. O'Keefe, I'll kick it over to you for anything that you want to kind of add in context to that.
No, I'll just I guess, share the same focus and desire that we talked about as it related to the WWEA, being able to hire and folks in all of our positions, and we certainly struggled in some significant areas this past school year, specifically teaching assistants was important. So we looked side by side with our neighbors in terms of those competitive starting rates, made sure that we could put ourselves, what we believe, in a position to spend fewer dollars through agencies this upcoming year and hire more of our own staff and provide more of those experiences through career pathways as it relates to our teaching assistants in the future. And then certainly, as Dr. Schuler mentioned, the benefit of an extension of 1 year, which will allow us next year to dive into a few specific topics that we may want to consider bringing back to the board in the future, but also not have to go back to the table and do a full negotiation next year too. So really twofold, ensuring that we're as competitive as we believe we are, both on the classified and certified side of things, bring a little bit more labor piece, and then allow us to dive into a few different topics that just needed more time to invest in, that wasn't going to be done in time to bring this information to you.
Thank you, Dr. O'Keefe. Board, any questions or comments?
I have one comment. Thank you, Brian. Just making it clear that although we're extending that, we did recently approve an increase in wages. Did you say that and I missed it?
Yeah. No, that is a part of what you're approving with the extension, right? Are those adjustments in wages?
Thank you. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but just a comment of something I wanted to reiterate, that really the motivation for the last contract and this is that it's just so important for students' education to retain that high quality staff. And so that was the motivation then, and I think this is a really good decision, especially for these aides that serve so much of our vulnerable students. So I'm happy to approve this.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, board, I need a motion and a second to approve the 1 year extension to the current contract between the Board of Education and the Classified Employees Association, along with competitive market salary adjustments for the 2023-2024 fiscal year as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Jerpy,
Second.
second by Ms. Blattner. Ms. Hutchison, will you please call the roll?
Mr.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Our second action item tonight is approval to post the DARE Keeping It Real 5th grade instructional materials for community review. Dr. Schuler, please introduce and share any information from staff.
Sure thing. So I'm going to call Dr. Sloggy up, who's going to lead this, but just the little historical context as he's making his way up. We are so appreciative of the partnership that we have with our local first responders and all of our communities. And so Ryan Conway, I think, called me. I don't remember when that was, but called a little while back, and actually more than a little while back, and said, hey, you know, there's a new kind of revised DARE program that is different than the old DARE program that we knew has an emphasis that I think really aligns with what he heard a lot through our district safety committee and interest really around how we expand that kind of traditional DARE program to also deal with kind of student interaction, especially in the electronic space, some of that kind of cyber behavior that is becoming, I think, much more relevant, obviously, in students' lives now. And so I brought the idea to Dr. Salagi, and they graciously agreed to run a pilot this year, and I think found a lot of success with that pilot and are bringing a recommendation to you tonight to expand that. So, Dr. Salagi.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Schuler. Before we get started, I want to introduce, or actually have these gentlemen introduce themselves to you. They're definitely two of our finest gentlemen, and it's been a pleasure to work with them. So,
good afternoon, or evening it is now. I'm Officer Seth Berlin with the Wheaton Police Department. I'm their certified DARE officer. I went through a 2-week training to be certified to go into the classrooms and teach the DARE curriculum to our students.
Good evening, Ryan Conway, Deputy Chief, also with the Wheaton Police Department. Been with them for going on 19 years and has also served on the School Safety Committee for over 5 years.
So before we dive into learning a little bit about the pilot that was run at Hawthorne and some of the intricacies of the program, I think a good starting point for us, as Dr. Schuler highlighted already a little bit, but just to dive a little bit deeper into it, is our collaborative partnership with our Wheaton Police Department. They really support us and collaborate with us on many different fronts. Obviously, first and foremost in the safety space, whether it's preventative work, whether it's work with Dr. Kyle in the safety committee, whether it's providing different trainings such as Alice or whatever it may be. They're there for us on that front end. Another piece of that is being a part of our risk of harm to others team. They consult with us in that area. We look at data together. We make tweaks to our processes. But anytime we ask, they're there, or many times they're being proactive and asking us. So that relationship really goes two ways. They're there for us for crisis support as well, always. Whether they're walking alongside us, whether they're just consulting with us, or they're taking the lead. And really in all situations, it's just been, a really collaborative relationship. And so I think the last piece that you'll see bolted there is how can they support our work in the educational space? And so to have this be brought forward, I think is going to be something that's really good for our kids, for our families, for our teachers, and for our community. So before we dive into the exact pieces of the pilot, what is the DARE program, right? The DARE program that we piloted and that we're recommending for community review tonight is for 5th grade. It's 10 45-minute lessons, and the real focus on it is on responsible decision-making, responsibility, confident communication, how kids deal in different situations with peer pressure, dealing with stressful situations, how they communicate and listen, how they work through bullying, and really how they can help others and get help from others.
Yeah, perfect. So a little bit about myself. Not only am I a 19-year veteran of the Wheaton Police Department, but I grew up here, so I'm a product of the Wheaton schools. I lived in Arrowhead practically my whole entire life. Went to Weesbrook all the way up to Wheaton Warrenville South. So thank you guys for everything that you do, and it really does, help motivate me, to be a better community leader. With that, I was, a part of a committee and a part of a team that brought Alice, the Alice model, to our school district. With that, doing refreshers this past year, as Dr. Schuler had mentioned, I talked to him about, DARE, and the reason why was I was getting a lot of inquiries about what can we do on the community level in, reinforcing community-oriented policing back into our elementary schools. Well, that got me thinking, and DARE has been that missing element between, law enforcement and our elementary schools. A lot of people might have known, the previous DARE program of Just Say No to Drugs. It's completely revamped into the Keeping It Real program. We are finding that this is a very cooperative endeavor to bring back community policing from law enforcement to the students, bringing in the educators, as well all the way through the family. And it is teaching kids proper decision-making skills that is, positively impacting them for their entire life and their service throughout the community as well. So during my research through that, we did a staff study on it at the police department before I brought it to Dr. Schuler's attention. A lot of the early findings of the previous DARE program of Just Say No to Drugs found that it rarely demonstrated any efficacy, which caused DARE to completely revamp their program. In 2015, they brought the Keeping It Real program forward, and by 2016, it was fully endorsed by the Surgeon General's report, specifically stating the Keeping It Real program curriculum is among the number of programs that build social, emotional, cognitive, and substance refusal skills and provides children accurate information on rates and amounts of peer pressure. Furthermore, they received support from the President's 2017 Commission on Combating Drug Addiction and Opioid Crisis, stating when evidence-based programs are selected for specific populations and implemented with fidelity, this can be effective. And the reason why this program is so effective is because it is taught by DARE certified officers with almost 100% fidelity. And that is extremely important to the success of the Keeping It Real program. And the biggest study, and I think we'll have that as part of the resources, is the University of North Carolina Greensboro study in 2022. Their findings were that the Keeping It Real elementary school program is delivered by certified DARE officers with high fidelity, and their delivery is engaging to students. It is effective and successful in the long-term reduction of drinking, getting intoxicated, smoking cigarettes, and vaping. And I think those are the majority of the issues that we are seeing with our youth. So the Wheaton Police Department is completely invested in providing 2 certified DARE officers. Currently, we have one right now, which is Seth Berlin, and the other is actually receiving their certification in Indiana as we speak, and he'll be completed by next Friday. So they go through an 80-hour intensive course that is taught by mentors as well as professionals, educational professionals that have many years of classroom experience as well as university level educators. All officers are taught to deliver the curricula exactly as it is written, thereby achieving that goal of almost 100% implementation fidelity. In addition to this, the officers that have been selected are currently juvenile officers. They have served as part-time school resource officers, filling in at Wheaton Warrenville South and Wheaton North. Seth had just gone through ALICE certification, so he is ALICE certified as well. And beyond that, they're just going to be a complete resource to be able to utilize with the collaboration between our elementary schools and our law enforcement. And then lastly for me, the Wheaton Police Department, as said before, we are completely committed to providing these officers to all CUSD200 fifth grade students and classes. We will provide the workbooks, nameplates, pencils, erasers, the graduation certificates, the t-shirts, the cool DARE t-shirts that everyone gets to see with the graduation, which is absolutely fantastic. We are also in conversations about doing enhancement lessons from 7th and 8th grade vaping prevention as well as online and social media safety. There are also high school enhancement lessons that do get into online and social media safety. But lastly, this is, again, this will serve a lifetime with these students. Everybody here who's ever gone through a DARE program could probably remember their DARE officer. So our officers are going to be committed to, having lunch with these students on a regular basis, being there at recess, being there, as it is just a resource throughout the community. And I think it is a great opportunity for the Wheaton Police Department to partner again with our school district and provide this curriculum. Thank you.
I want to talk to you a little bit more, go more in depth on DARE. I know we kind of covered what a little bit of the 10-week lessons cover, but just to kind of get into the meat and potatoes of it. Exercising self-control when under stress and pressure. A lot of these kids don't know how to compartmentalize and deal with that stress, so we teach them ways to cope, you know, different types of tips that they can use so they can slow down, think about a situation, which leads into identifying the risks and consequences of their choice. So when we're stressed and we're under pressure, sometimes we might make, you know, impulsive decisions. This allows them to slow it down, use what we call the DARE decision-making model to work through their problems, which is the define, assess, respond, and evaluate through each decision that they make. And they find that those risks may lead to negative consequences or may actually lead to a positive consequences. This also then spirals down to making safe and responsible decisions. By using that DARE decision-making model, they can work through every sort of situation they come through. They can go back to that DARE decision-making model. They can go through it in their head, and then they can come up with a decision that they make and not a decision made by a peer of theirs. Communicate more confidently and effectively. Once they make those choices and decisions, how are they actually going to deliver it? Are they going to, you know, deliver in a positive way or a negative way? We teach them how to actually communicate confidently, looking in people's eyes, standing up straight, open shoulders, being attentive, not looking at the floor, not mumbling, that kind of stuff. So when they actually come up with their decisions, they can confidently say yes or no to whatever situation that they're faced. Going outside of that, developing strong relationships with peers, family, and authority figures. It's an awesome way for me to go into school and put kind of like, I know I'm in uniform, but I can kind of put the job aside, and I can interact with the kids, and they can see me in a completely different light, that I am just a human being, just like them, just older. And then they can take these things that they learn and bring it back home or with other adults that they come across, teachers, other police officers within town. And then it also helps with becoming safe and responsible decisions by learning how to help others and knowing how to get help. A big thing that we kind of preach is building a help network, who you can go to when you're feeling stress and maybe you're having a difficult time working through the DARE decision-making model, depending on whatever situation it might be. Finding people that they can lean on, and then being open to allow others to lean on them. So the lesson structure and the core concepts, we really bring the real life situations and actual student experiences. Throughout the 10 lessons, the students are going to be doing skits that they have a ton of fun with when they find out they can be as creative as they want. They can share life experiences, role play. Big thing with DARE is it is taught to kids, by kids, through kids is what we say, and that could be kind of confusing. Introducing the material. The kids then take that material and incorporate students' life experiences. So all these students have a voice and they want to share it. So students will often share. And at least in the classroom, Ms. Holland, over at Hawthorne, where I was, a common thing that the kids would do, instead of talking over each other, saying, yeah, I agree, I went through that too, they would do this little handshake. As we're going through our lessons, we work through the DARE decision-making model. Students are sharing their life experiences, and throughout the peripheral of my vision, I can see all these kids like, yeah, I've been through that too. And then all of a sudden, we've got a huge class discussion about things that these students have gone through. So it allows for a safe environment for the students to discuss and learn from each other. After that, through that, I mean, we describe the concepts and skills that we learned through DARE, and then we review and journal right at the end of every lesson. And just some of the things from the pilot at Hawthorne, Principal Holly Zimmer went through the class on our last day just to get some feedback. This is what some of the students had to say. This is information we are going to use for a long time. It's not just now. It'll help us make decisions in middle school. DARE helped us because we understand how we can be better role models for others. I like that it was interactive instead of just hearing the information. We had a chance to talk through what we would really do. So it's not just me standing up there, going back to the taught to kids, by kids, through kids. The students are almost teaching it to themselves through life experiences. And we learn about making good decisions and how to respond to situations that may be tough to respond to. I think this will help us as we get older and we have to make decisions by ourselves. So there's already a lasting impact in just 10 short weeks. And this is just what I had to say through my pilot experience. The experience of joining Hawthorne Elementary School these last few weeks has been rewarding. The word rewarding sums it up. Could not have asked for a better class for my first experience as a teacher. During each lesson, the kids participated in a lot that had a positive impact in my ability to keep the lessons moving forward. Students shared ideas, feelings, and feedback with one another about the topics each week. This made it an experience that will stay with them beyond the classroom. My hope is that they are able to apply these skills moving forward. And with that being said, I also want to extend my gratitude to the school district for allowing me to go in and doing this pilot program at Hawthorne. So thank you.
So as we look to 2023, 2024, our plan, if approved, would be to implement this in our 5th grade classrooms across our district. As was mentioned before, it is a program that is done weekly for 10 weeks in about a 45-minute increment. We've worked with our principals, had our principals share the concept with their teachers, get some feedback and insight from their 5th grade teachers about this. Officer Berlin's been amazing and already sketching out a schedule of what that would look like, so we can make sure we're planning effectively and not hitting or impacting our math or ELA blocks. So all those things are in work, and we feel like we can do that efficiently and as you heard tonight, most importantly, have an impact on our kids. So the recommendation really tonight is to approve the posting of the Dare Keeping It Real 5th grade curriculum materials for community review. But we'll stop at this point and take any questions from the board.
Dr. Slaggy, can I just do two things that I wanted to mention and ask to confirm? So number one, we do have a couple of elementary schools that fall outside of the city of Wheaton, but we have had that discussion with the city of Wheaton. While the city itself can't commit resources to that, we can work on an agreement to ensure this is provided to all of our schools. So just want you to know that even our elementary schools that are outside of Wheaton will be served through the program and the same officers that will lead it. We're just going to work out an agreement specifically for how we compensate some of the service time for those schools.
So you're talking about Johnson, Bauer, and Pleasant Hill?
Just Johnson and Bauer. Pleasant Hill is served because there are students from Wheaton that attend Pleasant Hill as opposed to Johnson and Bauer being, so it's just Johnson and Bauer.
And then the last little thing, and Deputy Chief Conway, the Wheaton. So number one, obviously the police department had to support this, so we're certainly appreciative of Chief Murphy. But Wheaton City Council had to give the thumbs up right to this as well from I believe a
that
resource
would be for
allocation
a later
perspective.
discussion when we'll have to discuss something with the city manager and the council, just kind of for the backfilling of a position if necessary or what have you. But we definitely have the resources and funds available right now from the police department to utilize.
Perfect. Thank you.
Board, any additional questions?
Yes, thank you so much, first of all, for doing this work and for presenting it to us tonight. This is probably more of a question for you, Dr. Schuler, but where within the curriculum does this fit? Within the school day and within the overall subject matter?
Yeah, Dr. Slaggy, with
Yeah. So first of all, within the school day, the times that it would be done, and we worked through this even in the pilot at Hawthorne, there is some flexibility outside of the social studies and science block as we do that. So certainly what we want to do at the 5th grade level is stay away from math and ELA. But when you block this out and we've looked at it across all of our day, all of the year, there's time, if you're just doing the 10, 45-minute lessons. So the first question is, yes, there's time. The second question, I believe, was around some of the curricular connections. Certainly this ties to some of your broader social emotional learning standards of making responsible decisions and forming trusting relationships with others. So there's the correlation there. But actually there's correlation to our ELA core concepts as well, because there is writing, reflection, critical thinking within it as well. So there's correlation to both core content pieces there.
Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
Is there any coordination at all with the Warrenville Police Department?
I have been in contact with them. Again, not knowing what their resources or funding looks like. Currently, that's why we have been committed and received approval to be able to teach this curriculum to our Bauer and Johnson elementary schools. The only thing would be the compensation of materials and supplies for those two schools alone.
So, and certainly if Warrenville wanted to get an officer certified that did the actual instruction in their schools, we would be open to that, but certainly this is not going to prevent our Warrenville schools from accessing the program.
I have a question and a comment. Let me say my comment first because that's what I'm going to remember. So, Officer Conway triggered this. So, as part of what we've been doing over the last couple of years, college and career ready and exposing students to different opportunities other than, the 4-year college track, we've done, well, and in conjunction with that, we have done kind of a grow your own for educators, exposing our junior and seniors in high school to what it's like to be a teacher. And I'm just commenting that I think it would be nice to maybe, if there's a chance to have a mentorship program available for our students to mentor and work with police officers to see if that's something that they would be interested in as a career. So that's my comment. My question, it's another comment actually. So I love the idea of the enhancement or like a refresher in middle school and high school. And I think that even to your point, Mr. Jerpy, sorry, Eric, that's something that could even fall under health, like the health class, because you're talking about making good decisions about behaviors and that kind of thing. So thank you so much. I am incredibly impressed and happy that we're partnering. Thank you.
That prompted a question for me. Is there supplemental curriculum as you do middle school and high school? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so there actually is a complete middle school and high school DARE curriculum that is completely done and available to me. I am certified to do actually kindergarten all the way through high school. There are DARE curriculum for each stage of students' educational journey.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Mine were already covered. The 400. My biggest concern was the 450 minutes a year. So are you gonna? So is the plan? I don't know which way to look.
It's okay.
Is the guess for you?
Right over you.
Is the plan to take, like, say, all the 5th grade sections from a school together, or each one gets?
No, each
10
class
minutes?
by class, the way he's scheduled it out. So he's scheduled out, and we've actually already given that schedule to our principals as an outline, and they're making some slight tweaks because they're working on their schedules right now as well. So they would take class by class.
And then the other comment was it also connects into our portrait of a graduate. You talk about communicating, collaboration, right? So I love it. Do we know of any other school districts that are going down this road?
Yeah, so we kind of we did our research with Bartlett is one of them, and then Glen Ellen to our neighbors, as well as Carroll Stream. They all do it and have had phenomenal success with it as well.
Just a quick reminder, in the minute piece, I think fair point. Remember, with your new collective bargaining agreement for next year, you're actually adding about 1,700 minutes to the school year. So you are adding more than obviously what's being allocated through this program.
Any other questions or comments? John?
I just would like to follow up a little bit here in terms of exercising this plan. Is there a process or a plan to evaluate the results at some point to see that it's actually working as we expect it is?
Yeah, from the district perspective, what we'll do is we'll do it through our monthly elementary principal meetings. We'll isolate a topic there, and we'll have a feedback loop from our 5th grade teachers and our students, and have a process for getting feedback from them, and then obviously bring in both Seth and Ryan on that feedback process to evaluate it to say what is our plan moving forward into the next year.
That doesn't sound real quantitative. Is there a more quantitative approach to it, or am I missing something?
We can certainly look at more quantitative measures and bring that back to you.
And I'm not sure how to quantify it. But, yeah, thank you.
I just want to thank both of our gentlemen up here just for the cooperation, their leadership, and the work that they did. And I got a chance to observe Seth here in the classroom as well, and he's a natural with the kids. So the connection there, I think I came in at about less than 7 or 8, and it was magic. And the same feedback came from Tracy Holland, the teacher, who is a veteran teacher at Hawthorne, highly respected, just retired this year. And her comments to me and to Holly Zimmer were, this is exactly what we need. So just thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
Good. Thank you, Doctor.
Thanks.
Thank you. A couple other comments. I want to thank the Wheaton Police Department for their partnership, not only tonight, but just throughout my tenure on the school board. I love it. It's fantastic. and thanking Deputy Chief Conway and Officer Berlin as well for being with us tonight, and your passion for our students and the resource officers' passion for being at our schools. I'm, as a single board member, just really grateful for that commitment and partnership and for your service to our community. So thanks, really, from the bottom of my heart, thanks. All right, board, I need a motion and a second to approve the posting of the DARE Keeping It Real 5th grade instructional materials for community review as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Blattner,
Second.
second by Mr. Paulson. Ms. Hutchison, will you please call the roll?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, into the discussion information section of our agenda. We have 2 items for discussion tonight on the agenda. Discussion item 1 is Board Policy 2.180, High School Student Ambassadors. Dr. Schuler?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hanlon. So, at our last policy committee meeting, we had a discussion, and so what's coming forward to you tonight is not a recommendation to post a policy. It's an initial discussion to see if you want us to draft the policy to bring back to you at your next meeting. But just for purposes of discussion, in your green packet, there are 2 samples of a policy that relate to a high school student ambassador program. Other point of kind of history on why we brought this forward, I think the board expressed certainly through my evaluation in this last year a desire to enhance the board's connection to students and student voice. I've identified that as something very important, and so really explored some different avenues where that can happen. So previously, the board used to do chat with the board sessions, 1 at each high school, and it was a good kind of single point in time discussion to kind of gauge some feedback from the group of students that happened to be at that particular chat with the board, but even that was really kind of limiting in terms of when it happened. You had 1 opportunity at each high school with a pretty narrow group of students. And so I really looked at this from a perspective of how can we potentially build a connection to student voice, but really through the lane of board governance and the work that you do, right? Which is really understanding when you're considering a policy or you're considering an experience or a program, what is the student feedback, thought, response, right, to that, trying to kind of keep that voice in the governance lane. And so I was aware of a number of districts that were utilizing a student ambassador or like a student board member concept, and that's really what we kind of investigated and brought to the policy committee. So the idea is we would designate a certain number of student ambassadors, could be 2, could be 4, depending on how many you wanted to have and how you want to make sure each school is represented. I had an initial discussion with our high school principals for next year, and I think their thought is it might make sense just as a number where you're not approving this, but just to kind of illustrate the concept, to have 2 from each high school so that there was always kind of 1 returning student ambassador and then a new one that came in each year. So in other words, you have a junior and a senior and kind of roll, a process so you have some returning experience with somebody new. And again, the thought or the idea is that those students on some type of kind of established schedule would attend your board meetings, would be able to participate in discussions as appropriate. When you wanted feedback kind of from the student voice, they would lead that engagement process back at their respective schools with the help of the principals, whether it's through utilizing principal advisory groups at the respective schools or some of the other student clubs. But as you're really thinking about kind of running, in essence, focus groups for students to get feedback on a policy, you might want to consider rather than kind of try to do that on your own or even through me, would task me to kind of ask the students to gather that feedback and bring that back to you. They would not have voting privileges at the board table. You can't grant that. They would not participate in any closed session discussions or conversations, but they would certainly have the ability to participate as you deem appropriate kind of at this level. But I think in order to do it, you would really need to establish the policy And so there are just two very simple versions of that policy. The one that has the administrative procedure right below it is from Batavia School District nearby. The one on the back, I think, comes from Urbana School District downstate a little bit that, again, kind of utilizes a program. But again, it doesn't have to be one of these policies, but they're pretty similar in terms of structure. Batavia does provide a little bit of administrative procedure just around how students were selected. And both districts are a little different in how they approach that. At Batavia, the board has kind of specifically asked the principal and staff to go about kind of soliciting student interest that then comes back to the board. At Urbana, that interest comes directly from the students to the board, right? So the board puts out an application, students apply kind of through that application. Board would likely assemble a team to some degree, probably kind of like you do when you're filling an open position on the board. You'd assemble a team to conduct some interviews and decide, you know, which students that you want to add as student ambassadors. And obviously you can kind of do that reflective of interest. So we had an initial discussion with your policy committee. I think your policy committee unanimously felt like this was a good idea to bring to the board. And so really the question on the table tonight is not, is there one of these policies you want to really adopt, but is the concept something that you're interested in? And if it is, I will work on a District 200 version of a model policy that I would bring back to you in July to really kind of analyze and look at to post. If you're interested in this, I'd love to get it in place for the fall so that you could solicit your first round of student ambassadors to start here in the early fall and kind of get into a regular cycle. I'm kind of excited about the idea. I think it'd be a great point of contact for the board and certainly for me as well, as we're really thinking about the kind of the right lane for activating their voice in your piece. And the last part of this, I guess, Angela, you just recognized it in the last presentation. Again, I think in this kind of lane of pathway, it also is another opportunity for students to see and understand the governance level that you're involved in, which I think is really important for students that, again, have a particular interest in any type of like civic involvement or that career. I think it'd be a great opportunity for students that might be interested in policy or public policy.
Any questions, comments from board members?
I'll go totally supportive of it. We've talked a long time about elevating student voice, so I like that. I was actually presenting to one of our neighboring districts last week about a building program, and they had a student board member. It was amazing. 8th grade, asking great questions, you know, keep providing input to the other board member, to the real board members, that, you know, the student perspective on this stuff. So I think it's great. I'd like to do it. I think there's I guess two opportunities. One, somewhat humorous. Maybe there's a public service career pathway that can be built out of this. But maybe another opportunity could be not only, you know, providing input to the board, but participating in the CAC and possibly kind of reporting back to the board from the prior meeting, what the discussions were. Could be a nice kind of dovetail between the two. So totally supportive. I'd love to do it.
Great.
Yes, also very, very supportive. You know, a couple thoughts, and I'll try not to dive too deep down into what will be, you know, eventually worked into a policy. But you know, similar to Mr. Paulson, you know, I do wonder: is there either a tie-in to the CAC, or are there two avenues for, you know, students to have representation? You know, both CAC and this, perhaps. You know, the second thing is we are, you know, geographically a very large district, number of students, large district. With that diversity, I do think, you know, the example here is probably not enough representation. I feel we'll need some greater numbers to really represent the voices even of the students in the district. So I'd say maybe is there a way to think a little bigger in terms of numbers? The last thing, again, from a representation standpoint, you know, this policy as an example reflected nomination by the faculty. I would think that perhaps there is a look both at faculty nominated as well as student nominated representation. But again, generally very, very receptive to this.
very similar comments. I'm really excited about this idea and about elevating student voice, and just briefly reviewing these policies. Some of the things that stood out to me are I kind of favor the idea of having the principals nominate the students, or some nomination process to the students, just because if in an interview process with us, it's really hard to understand a candidate if you have 15 minutes with them. So I thought they might be in the best position to recommend someone that would be good for this. As we do want this to be a representative student voice, I like the idea that they are not necessarily the spokesperson for all students, but tasked with going and developing an advisory council or getting that feedback in some systematic manner. Because the terms for some of these proposed ones of 2 years and just having 2 representatives, that did make me a little apprehensive of, does that overemphasize just one voice when it should be representative, when we do want the feedback from more of our students. So I think clarifying how that role works would be helpful. Then, the last comment I had is just knowing how involved our students are. I wondered if 2 was the right number, where there are going to be, we meet 2 Wednesdays a month normally. Are there going to be months where they have maybe a sport or another activity that I want them to still do their activities? And so if there's a group that kind of rotates, is that a way that they can give us the student voice, have a variety, and also be involved in the regular activities?
Any other comments from board members? Questions? I guess that's to this half of the room.
Yeah. So I support it. As part of the policy committee, Dr. Schuler already said we unanimously support it. In terms of some of the tweaks, that you guys are suggesting, this is something I've been interested in a while, and I kind of feel like maybe we should start with this and then see how it goes. But I'm not sure. I agree with what both of you guys said, but I'm also concerned: will we have a lot of people that want to do it, or is it going to be hard to get 5 people if the number's 5? And do we in the policy have to say a number? Because I think if we start it, and then this could lead to other things. The CAC, it could lead to bigger groups. It could lead to monthly chat with the board type of thing if there was interest. But trying to force something that we think we want, if the kids, are we going to really have kids stepping forward? That would be my one apprehension about it. Like, let's just start, and then whatever we start with doesn't have to be the model for years. So that's just I really like this, and I'm excited to get started.
Good.
You want to go ahead?
No, go ahead.
Brad had mentioned an 8th grade student. Where do we draw the line between with the number of schools that we have?
I was just referring to that district. That it's a K-8 school district, so they had an 8th grade student. I don't know that. I think the high school level is our right level.
I like the idea. I really like the concept of the administration having a better handle on how we select the members to participate in it, as opposed to us doing it.
When you were discussing it, my initial thought was, oh, we're going to grow our own board members now. So nice idea. I agree, Eric, that I think and with Dave as well, I don't know that we want to limit or like specify a specific number, because I do think just having 2 or 4 would limit representing well the entire population. Do our high schools currently have, do they each have a principals advisory committee?
Yeah, South does. Wheaton North, Mr. Corntour is going to, it's something he's interested in. He's going to kind of model the experience he had at South and bring that to North next year. Mr. Biskin utilized a lot of just the student groups at North and kind of went individually where he needed to get feedback, and went to a lot of different student groups and kind of solicited the the feedback that way. But yes, I believe next year they will both have student advisory groups. So I think there will be a structure to kind of build a connection out to kind of the broader student population.
Okay.
Right. But I think, to the point, and, it's interesting. It's a great opportunity to teach and help students understand the difference between like governance, where you are really representing, right, all versus, a system where you're only representing kind of your own interest in trying to apply that. So there's a learning opportunity in that, right? That gives you a chance to teach your role to students, which I think, is really, really important. So
I think it's a great idea.
Thanks. Anyone else? Just a few thoughts. Serving on the policy committee when we talked about this originally, kind of three topics came to mind as you all were sharing your ideas. One was time commitment of students. They're busy, right? They got a lot going on. Hanging out with us a couple times a month. But we want to structure it in a way where it respects their schedule and their time, right, and their commitment to their education. Secondly is student voice, and just what I thought I heard, and I just want to adjust a little bit, is I don't see this as a replacement for student voice. I see this as an enhancement to what we're doing already. So I don't think we're taking away to do something else. I think we're adding on top of, just because we can choose a couple of different paths, and I think this is just one additional new way to hear student voice. And the last is the important, now some of you mentioned this, is the importance to kind of just make sure we're listening and connected to our building leadership. So, selection of the students, how we built the program, how they get feedback, and kind of rely and trust in our leadership in the buildings to implement that for us, and giving them kind of a wide berth to help pick the right folks. Those were the three things we talked about at the policy committee that we heard pieces of it tonight, but I wanted to share with you all, but that's all I have. All right.
I think based on that feedback, next step, I will kind of work with some of the feedback I think I heard tonight and bring to you a draft policy at your next meeting that, again, you can tweak or adjust as we post, and we'll take that through your regular policy approval process. So you'll have two shots, right, two meetings to tweak and post that, and I think we could hit a timeline that would have this approved in August so that we could start with the new school year.
Sorry, just one other question, if I may. Similar to how members of the CAC have to go through Open Meetings Act training, if these ambassadors would be regularly attending board meetings and providing some advisory input, will they have to go through that training as well?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. One, let me get the correct actual answer to it. I think it's a good idea for them to learn a little bit. That module to go through Open Meetings Act training is available to anybody. So I think if you really want them to understand the role, they probably ought to understand what's a part of the role, which are kind of the circumstances in which you operate. So, but I'll get the actual answer to it.
All right, thank you. Our second discussion item tonight is Board Policy 2.150, Board Committees. Dr. Schuler?
Yeah, I guess, Mr. Hanlon, I'm probably going to hand this over to you. I think you had an interest in making some adjustment in kind of the board committee structure moving forward, and so that sits under Policy 2.150, which is where you designate your committees. So this will be kind of rooted in that policy.
Yeah, thank you. And I know I've had kind of one-on-one conversations with everybody, just testing the concept that we're going to talk about. And if you look at that current policy 2.150, it lists the committees we have in place. I think as I thought about our committees, we set our committees and who participates in those committees and mix it up each cycle. And if I think about where a lot of our board work happens, it happens in two places. It happens at our committees of the whole, which is we're all together and we're kind of collaborating and talking about ideas and really deep topics. And I think this year we had some really nice sessions. Several people commented, both board members, staff, and others, that those were really helpful sessions where we could talk. It was kind of a little more informal. We pressure tested a lot of ideas. I thought that was really great work we did at the committee of the whole. And then there is board work that we have in our committees. So having served on a series of those committees over the last 6 years, I see that kind of supplemental work being done in the policy committee, HR policy committee, finance committee, and building facilities committee. There's a lot of work that goes on with two board members of each of those committees that then is kind of consolidated and brought to the whole board for discussion. And as I think about the total list of committees outlined there, those three really lend themselves to that idea where there's work done in a subgroup, it's massaged and shaped, and then brought to the whole board for discussion, where the other committees that we've had, and I'll call them